Hello, my friends, and welcome to We the Game Changers. I'm your host, Beth Knox, and today we're talking with Seahawks legend and Seattle business leader, Doug Baldwin Jr. So you've talked about how your parents were at opposite sides of a complex social justice time. Of course, as a police officer, then your mom as an activist. And many people have asked, do you destroy a system and start over or change it from the inside? And your take on that question was essentially yes. And so talk to me a little bit about that statement and where you carry that sentiment into rooms or difficult conversations.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a timely one because I had a conversation not too long ago. My team and I, we were interviewing for an opportunity to work with a pretty large organization. And one of the questions that they posed to me in this interview was, I talk a lot about love and about people, right? But this specific individual, he wanted to hear more about systems, how, like, the systems are, what run this thing. So how do you feel about systems? How do you approach systems? And it was ironic because before the interview, I was sitting in the waiting room, and this is in Seattle, and I'm looking out the window, and it's a high-rise building, and I'm looking at this really tall building. I'm like, dang, like, that's a really tall building. How does a building like that not get blown over by strong winds or by an earthquake? Like, how does it stay stable? You see this tall building, right. So of course I asked ChatGPT, and
as one does these days. And I kind of thought that this was the case, but ChatGPT obviously confirmed it. But people don't realize how heavy that foundation is to build that building on top of. So that's what holds it in place, right? So if it sways like that, the weight of that is keeping it sturdy, anchored. That's how I think about systems and people together. So when you said, do you destroy the system and build a new one, or do you fix the one? And my answer was yes. I'm evolving that answer by saying that it starts with the people. The foundation that building was built on, that's the people, right? Because the scaffolding and the system that you put on top of that, if it's built on sand, it's not going to last, right? But if you have the people who are developing the systems and the scaffolding and thinking about things holistically and with intention to serve a greater good, then that system is going to develop on top of itself with the foundation and the intent that it was meant to do good in the world. If it's not, again, if it's built on sand, it's going to fail. Sure. If it's built with the wrong intention, then that's what the system is going to do. So to me, the foundation has got to be the people. Who are the people who are building the system, right? And then to go a little bit further to your point about, so once we have the people in place and we want to go either disrupt the system or change a system or build a new one, the approach that we have is that, and look, I'm not going to knock the political game, but what I'm saying is, like, in the political realm, it's really hard to make change, right? It's very slow moving. Yes.
So that's why we like to operate adjacent to politics, but outside of politics, where we see a system that's built and we say, man, it's just not a system that we would build, or it's not, there's so much things that we would change inside of it. So instead of going and disrupting it or destroying it, or because we don't even have the ability to do so, because there's so many people intertwined with this structure that hold it up, we instead just build a different, smaller model of a structure or a system, and then have the compare and contrast. Like I said earlier, here's what you could have, here's what you have, why can't you do it this way? And then get the right people, again, to help build that foundation to then start the new structure, the new system. Knock on wood, we've been very successful up to this point doing that.
Sure.
But it requires a lot of patience, a lot of intentionality, and a lot of grit, as you can imagine. But that's the way we like to do it.
Grit is the key, no question. So at Vault 89 Ventures, how are you finding the businesses or partners to invest in that are focused on societal change, like Boon Boon Coffee and Intentionalists are just two examples. Talk to me a little bit about the connection between Vault 89 and
the partners that you're working with.
Yeah, it goes back to the people. It's relationships, right? So Ephraim Fasaha, the guy who owns Boon Boona, the founder of Boon Boona, when I met him, I had no intention of investing in his coffee shop, but I fell in love with the person. Ephraim is a tremendous human being, and he shared with me his journey to get to coffee and how he went back home to the motherland and was actually going to become a monk. Sorry, Ephraim. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell people this, but he was actually going to become a monk.
Okay.
And when he got there, his uncle was like, "No, don't become a monk. Like, do something else," and pointed him towards, I think he said he was experiencing the coffee ceremony, and he started just thinking and pondering about coffee and how this ceremony came to be, and then the origins of coffee, and then he fell in love with coffee, and then now he, runs a beautiful, amazing coffee shop that's expanding across the country and the world. And so we really just focus on the people. And again, sorry, Ephraim, I know he's going to say something about this, but normal investment thesis would tell you that you're supposed to invest in something that you use or that you consume. I don't drink coffee, so technically I can't tell you if the coffee tastes good.
Right.
Now I know it tastes good and I know it's good coffee, but I don't drink coffee, so again, normal thesis would tell you, why would you do that?
Right.
Our investment thesis is that we invest in the people. Ephraim is a good human being who has the business acumen, so there's that part of it too, but his mission and his values align with what we were trying to achieve in the world, and then the impact that he's having back in Ethiopia and Eritrea, and now expanding even outside of that. It's a game changer for people's lives, and so that's what we invest in, right?
Right.
And so you start the relationship with Ephraim, that then leads to another conversation with somebody else, that then leads to a conversation with somebody else, and then those connecting dots just connect, and then we invest in Intentionalists, we invest in a company called Optisight, we invest in a company called Mangata. Like, it expands your perspective on investment thesis when you really focus in on the people. Again, knock on wood, we've been mostly successful up to this point with that methodology, and it could change in the future, but again, if I'm being true and most authentic version of myself, we lean on who are these people that we're investing in and supporting, because again, if that's the foundation, and if we're building it on a solid foundation, then the rest of it takes care of itself.
So can you elaborate on the North Star of Vault 89?
Yeah, we are just good people seeking out other good people to do good work in the world.
There you go.
Simply put.
Right.
Yeah, and that can mean a whole bunch of different things, right? Or I should say, it touches a whole bunch of different things. We're in many different sectors. We're in student health and well-being. We're in food security. We're in satellites. We're in, it spans the gamut of industries. But again, at the end of the day, we're just a bunch of good people trying to find other good people to do good work in the world.
So along that same line, you were personally connected with your local community center as a child. How formative was that in your decision to create the Family First Center, community center in Renton?
Yeah, very formative. So the Salvation Army that my mom worked at, she worked on the administrative side of it, but in the back end was a community center. That was my second home.
Okay.
That's where I got introduced to football, basketball, t-ball. I didn't go further than t-ball. Another story for another day. My mentors, tutors, people who volunteered, but then poured into all the kids who went there, and made such a tremendous difference in my life that I didn't even know about, at the time, but now reflecting back on it, and then obviously now having kids. And then when I got here in 2011, I landed in that part of Renton, that community. Mama's Teriyaki was the spot that I used to go to, the old Cascade Shopping Village back in the Cascade area of Renton, Benson Hill area of Renton. And when I would go there was always kids hanging out. And, they weren't eating. I think most of them probably didn't have money to buy food, even though Mama Twee would take care of them a lot of the times. But they would hang out there, they would do homework, they would hang outside the building. And I just asked her one day, I was like, what are these kids doing? What's going on here? And she said they have nowhere else to go. They don't bother her. It's a place for them to be safe and do their homework after school and stay out of trouble. And so she lets them stay. That's when I realized, hey, there's an opportunity here to build something that was very influential and important in my life. Can I galvanize the right leaders and the right people to build this system and this structure to then serve this community? And it took us a long time.
I remember. I followed that journey.
Yeah, about 10 years.
Yeah.
From inception to opening our doors. And so a lot of patience, but we got the right people around it to make it happen. And so, yeah, the experience that I had back in Florida, Pensacola, Florida, at that community center, the Salvation Army, was very influential in that for me, because I would not be here speaking to you today if it wasn't for that facility and for those people there, Coach Lumen, Coach Palmer, Coach Reggie Brown, Coach Bernard, Coach Smith. Like, just, there's so many people who have had an impact on my life, and they didn't get paid for that work. They were volunteers who just genuinely cared about the kids in that community. It made a big difference for me. And so when we had the opportunity to do something like that in the Cascade Benson Hill area, I couldn't pass on it. So and we're proudly serving 14,000 unique members already.
That's incredible, Doug.
We're almost, I think we just celebrated our second year anniversary, and we're still growing. So it's been a beautiful journey.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's so
Thank
inspiring. You. What is it about the center's how it executes every day that is a disruptor in the traditional ways that it might operate?
Great question. It's great question. It's culture.
Okay.
It's culture, and I know it's love.
Yeah.
It's really what it is love, and it's hard for me to explain it. You just got to go and feel it. From the design of the building and the space, right when you enter, there's this long spine of a hallway that leads to everything, but when you walk in, you're slightly interrupted by the front desk, and it's curved, so it's not an abrasive interruption, it's a very gentle interruption, but the interruption is necessary because I want you to have an interaction with the folks at the front desk. It's vital to us that, and I'll say it again, when anybody comes through those doors, they have to be seen, loved, and respected for the individual they are, regardless of where they come from, their cultural background, their ethnicity, their sexual orientation, because I know that's a big thing in this world today.
Right.
It does not matter. You're a human being at the end of the day. And when you come through our doors, that's how we're going to treat you, as a human being, that you're now part of our family and part of our culture, and we're going to love you as such. And when you create that culture and that environment, it is a disruptor. The teachers, the principals of the 10 schools in a 3-mile radius of that center will tell you behavior has changed. We're still going to collect the data. Behavior in that community is changing. So we're being a disruptor just by showing up and being our most authentic selves and showing love to the human being next to us, to our neighbors. And then also the business model itself is different. We don't operate in terms of some of the other facilities that you would see that own their own programming. So 95% of our programming is outsourced. So we vet third-party organizations who have the trust of community, who have been doing the work in community for decades before we got there. We just bring them into our facility and let them do more of that work. And then we don't charge them an exorbitant amount of rent to do so, and we encourage them to pass on those savings to our participants. So most of our programming is either free or low cost. And also business model side, because we don't have to staff up for that programming, it keeps our costs really low, right? So we're able to operate at a lower cost than other facilities because we operate in that way.
That's so inspiring. Now, how do you lead in a space where changes are happening, at a rapid fire pace, and especially in today's landscape of where resources are changing, funding, legislation? I'm curious what Vault 89's strategy is. Are you leaning into that? Are you tapping in, reshaping, stepping away? How are you managing this rapid fire change that we're all experiencing?
Yeah, I can tell you we're never leaning out. We're always leaning in. All of my team are competitors. They're all competitors, and they want to do good work, and they want to compete to do good work. And when I say compete, I don't mean like against somebody else.
Right.
I mean competing to be the best versions of ourselves and to get the most out of our work and the highest quality out of our work. And so my role as the leader of this team, and I say leader of this team, we're all leaders on this team, so let me be clear about that. And how I operate our teams is it's more of an egalitarian environment. Again, I come from a team background, team sports background. And what I know to be true, at least from my experience, little shameless self-promotion here. Every little league team, or every year of our little league team from 6 years old to 14 years old, we won every city championship except for 2.
Okay.
In high school, when I got to play, it was one of our high school's best years in high school's history. Got to college, and when Jim Harbaugh finally let me play my senior year, we went to the Orange Bowl and beat up on Virginia Tech. And then coming to the Seahawks, win one Super Bowl, should have won another one, right? I'm not saying that it's me that's causing this winning environment.
Right.
What I'm saying is that I've been around it a lot.
Right.
I've seen it, I've experienced it, so I know what it is. And what I feel very strongly about those environments, or what I know to be true about those environments from my perspective, is that nobody on those teams felt like their role was more valuable and more important than the person next to them, right? No matter what your role was in your perspective, no matter how grand or how small it may have felt, you played a role.
Sure.
And your role was important in the greater picture of success for that team. And so that's how I try to operate our teams. It's an egalitarian environment. My role is to make this specific decision, right? Other individuals on my team, they have specific roles that I can't do my job unless they do their job.
Right.
And they can't do their job unless I do my job. And so we're all dependent on each other. We're all leaning on each other to do this work. And so how I show up and what my role is like, yes, there are specific decisions that I have to make. But for the most part, it's looking at my team and saying, what do you need? How can I support you? How can I serve you so that you can be the most authentic version of yourself?
Right.
To then show up to this work and provide the quality that, yes, as a leader of this organization, I'm requiring and demanding, but really is because the community we serve deserves that, right? So in order for me to get the best out of my teams, I as a leader have to show up and ask, what do you need to get your work done?
Right.
How can I best support you? And so that's how I like to show up. And sometimes it's against the advice of some of my business mentors, and how they've traditionally done things. But again, if I'm going to do this work, I can do it
true to you.
Right. And so that's what I know to be true about myself. And so again, knock on wood, we've been fairly successful up to this point in that way.
So let's shift gears to Champions of Change, which is a foundation that you co-created with fellow Seahawks legends Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill to support local organizations doing vision-aligned work. Tell us what it's like to work in a team dynamic with former athletes and teammates. I just love this question. It's such a, you're in a very different environment. So did you fall into familiar communication styles and habits or patterns? How is it different in a business environment?
It's very interesting.
I can imagine.
It's very interesting. But I'll give Cliff and Mike B a ton of credit. They're good people trying to do good work in the world, right?
Sure.
So it's very easy to work with them. Although there are some times we have friction because we come from different lived experiences, right? And we bring different opinions and perspectives to the table, but we're all aligned in trying to do good work. And so I would say our experiences as working as teammates before, but then also just in team sports in general, has really lended itself to us being effective leaders and collaborators when we go out in community. Because very similarly, Mike B and Cliff, they also show up and asking, how can I serve you? How can I help you to get more of the work done? And that's what Champions Change is really holistically, is it's an organization that really wants to support, it wants to be a backbone support for the organizations that are on the ground doing the work. So what is it on the back end that we can alleviate for you so that you can do more of the work that is actually impacting the folks' lives on the ground, right?
That's incredible.
So when you have guys like Cliff and Mike B who are aligned in that, but then also bring their own skill sets to the table to make sure that it's a very well-rounded and thoughtful process, it makes for a beautiful thing. Again, not without its friction, but I also think, as I went back, said earlier, that friction is necessary for us to make it as impactful and as efficient as we possibly can. So it's been interesting, but it's also been very rewarding and again, very successful to a large sum.
So to that point, you obviously working with a variety of organizations, you learn a lot from them, and you learn about your strategies that have been successful. Have you developed templates that then you can then share with these organizations to help them become more efficient and effective?
I don't know if I'd call it a template, but there is a methodology, and it goes back to what I said earlier. It's just the people, right? Like, can you love on your people? Can you love people better and more? And because people are so different, and because they come from different walks of life, how you approach them and how you engage with people, it's different, you know? And so there's no quote unquote template, but there is
a common thread, certainly.
Right, you know? My belief is that everybody wants to be seen and loved. I feel very strongly about that. Every interaction that I have with folks, it's very clear to me that everybody just wants to be seen and loved and respected for who they are, right? And to be appreciated for the flawed human being that they are and the journey that they are on. And when you do that, you know, people lean in more, and they're more engaged, and they're more bought in, and they're more willing to go the extra mile to support the work that you're doing, or to be a part of the work that you're doing, or, you know, just, and we say this too, especially to our young folks, just to be better humans. You know, and at the end of the day, that's really what we're asking for folks to do, is to see something outside of themselves, so that they can see that this world is such a vast place, and everybody on this planet is just trying to survive and thrive, and then give themselves grace in the process, because they're trying to do the same thing. And if we did that, just imagine how better our world could be. And so again, it's not necessarily a template, it's just a methodology of, like, how are you pouring into people? How are you loving and showing up authentically for yourself, but also for others in that love? And if you do that, again, not saying you win the championship, but you give yourself a chance.
Well, you said something that really struck me about accepting the people that we work with for being the flawed humans that they are. You know, especially as a leader, when we are coaching other people, mentoring them, we're trying to get them to be better, improve, grow as a human. And that can sometimes be transactional. Just do better the next time, keep doing better. And there's I just felt like kind of a release when you said that, of accepting the flaws that they bring to the table as well. Because you can accept that and inspire them to improve and do better.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an example. We had a really hard decision that we had to make in January this year. I had to let go of one of our teammates who had been with us for 6 years. And, you know, incredible individual, was somebody that, you know, helped build the company to where it is today. So obviously had a very huge fingerprint on what we were doing. But it was time for that person to go. And selfishly, like, I would have wanted that person to stay, right? But if I zoomed out and I looked at it holistically, what was important for, or what was best for the organization, right? So the other individuals on our team, right? It was best for them that we made this decision. And then ultimately for that person, because I think they were being stifled in the position that they were in, and they weren't able to grow. And now, you know, I say this, you know, hindsight, now that she's no longer in that position, she is growing and she's finding more of herself, right? But we're also still being able to work together and still make impact together. But that was a really tough decision. And it was one of those opportunities or examples, if you will, where, you know, it's, and I don't want to say she was flawed, because that's not, you know, that wasn't the case. But you had to accept the person holistically as they were, and then make the best decision, not only for, you know, quote unquote, the business, but the organization. And when I say the organization, I mean the people, right? But also for that person themselves. And so, yeah, there's a level of humility that comes with that too, because I'm a competitor. I like to make a square peg fit in a round hole, you know, sometimes, but there are those times where you got to let it go. And when you let it go, it becomes more fruitful and blossoms in ways that you couldn't see before.
Well, we can also apply that same philosophy to ourselves in recognizing when it's time for the next chapter. You know, I've had that happen to me in my career, where I suddenly understand, I have a real deep insight that I have completed my time here because I am flawed and I've maxed out on what I can give to this organization, and it's time for someone else to do that, and I'll take my skills and experience to the next organization. So it is recognizing that in ourselves as well as other people.
And it doesn't have to be a negative thing.
No, absolutely
not. I think a lot of people would take that as a negative thing, but it doesn't have to be a negative thing. The way that I think about it is that, especially with business opportunities that we're involved in, there's a time where it comes to an end, and sometimes it's amicable and sometimes it's not, right? But I'm not mad when it comes to an end. I'm grateful that it happened, because there's so many valuable lessons and experiences and core moments, core memories that we created through that experience that then is going to impact the decisions that we make in the future and the experiences that we have. And so I'm never mad about it. I'm very grateful for it. And I should say this, it has taken me a while to get to that point. So, there are probably quotes and videos of me saying otherwise before, but what I know to be true now is that I'm just grateful for every experience that I have, because I know it's beneficial for me in the long term.
Sure. So we've talked a little bit about your family, actually quite a lot, and I love that throughout this whole discussion. You became a dad several years ago and now have 3 daughters. How are you encouraging your children to discover their leadership voices, and are you communicating or fostering leadership with your girls in different ways than you received when you were growing up?
For sure. Yes. And that's been a struggle too, if I'm being honest, because I think this is true, but every generation, right? We grow up with influences from the previous generation that then mold our experiences or guide our experiences in a lot of ways. And so there are a lot of things that my mom and dad instilled in me that I then instill in my daughters, but there's also some processes and methodologies that they had that I don't replicate with my daughters. And it's not to say that those things were bad or that they were bad. That's not the case. It's just times are different.
Times are different.
And also, I know all parents know this, children are different. Every child is different. I got 3 daughters. We've raised them all the same. They're so vastly different. And so what I've come to know about me as I step into leadership roles is that I have to be so aware and understanding of who I am, right? And my why, as I said before. And so at this early stage in my daughter's lives, again, my oldest is 6 years old, my youngest is about to be 3, I want them to explore their curiosity as freely and as securely as they can, so they know who they are, right? And I'll be honest, that's a challenge at times, right? Because my middle daughter, I encourage her, I encourage all of them to use their voices and to speak up for what they believe in, and if they, if it's a no, it's a no, right? Not always do I like that, but I want them to have the strength and the empowerment to say no when it's a no for them. One day my daughter she's climbing in the closet and she's not supposed to be climbing in the closet. I'm like, Nia, what are you doing? She said, none of your business. Now, if that was my mom and dad, there would be a different reaction, right?
Sure.
But I also recognize she feels so safe and comfortable with me to have that type of response, right?
Right, get a great perspective.
I gotta pull her aside and be like, hey, look, there's a different way that we can communicate this. But I do like that they feel empowered and strong enough to voice their opinion and be very strong about it. And so in this initial phases of their life, that's really what I'm trying to encourage and instill in them, is the freedom to explore their curiosity and who they are. Because then when they get adults, they're secure in that, and they know that they're loved regardless of the flaws or the mistakes that they make. They have this foundation of love behind them with their parents, that they can go out and explore and be creative and find who they are to then step into the leadership roles that I inevitably believe that they will step into.
Right.
And so right now we're just building the foundation of them knowing who they are.
When my boys were young, we had one in particular who would fight us at every turn. It didn't matter how long to brush your teeth or get off the playground. We finally took a parenting class because we were struggling with communicating with him.
Yeah.
And she told us, children are different now. They come out of the womb knowing they have choices. Yeah. Our parents didn't say, do you want orange juice or milk?
Right.
They just
you got what you got.
You got what you got.
Yeah.
And so they all intuitively know that they have choices, and that gives them power that they can make their choices. And that was such a revolutionary moment for us to understand that, and then to approach it differently. And so we learned how to give them choices within parameters.
Right.
How many more times down the slide do you want to go before we leave?
Right.
And then it was his choice. He made the number, we counted to that, and then that's when we left.
Yeah.
But it is very different, and being able to adapt to that is it's important phase for us to be in as parents.
It is. One of the things my grandfather on my mom's side used to teach me all the time is just like, when the food is put in front of you, when he was growing up, you had to eat that food.
Right.
That was the food that you got, right? And you had to eat it quickly, because if you didn't eat it, somebody else might eat it, right?
Yes.
And so I had to get out of this mind frame. But I just think it's funny. It's a funny example. I used to say when my daughters would, we put food in front of them, they had options, right? They knew the options.
Right.
They didn't like this food. And I would tell my wife would get frustrated. I'd be like, she's just not hungry enough. So there's a balance that I'm trying to find in that. But I do recognize that, the more and more I encourage my daughters to speak up and use their voice, I can see how secure they feel about themselves. And so then when they're out, playing with friends, I can see that they feel free to be themselves. And as a father, that's really all I want, right? I want them to feel secure and feel loved enough to just be who they are.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm still finding that balance though.
I know. It's a journey, and it doesn't actually end.
No, it doesn't.
Yes.
I've heard. My mom tells me often.
Oh, I know. she can speak with her own truth.
Yeah.
So, Doug, we always wrap up our episodes with what we call our game changer quick hits, and things I want to make sure I learn from you before we sign off. Who has changed the game for you the most, either personally or professionally, and why?
Man, I can't name one person, but I will say that there are two people. There are two people who are the most influential in my life right now. Well, there's three actually, but I'll name three of them.
Go for it.
But there's a lot of people who have poured into me and who have been mentors and who have been impactful in a number of ways. But right now, today, there's three people who are just super influential, and just I talk to them every day practically. One of them is my grandfather. He passed away in 2017, and I still talk to him to this day. Right? He's in my thoughts, and just part of my prayers every time is that he's right there, and I know he's right there, and I feel his presence. He's the greatest individual I've ever come across. His influence and his love for me really opened up capacity for me to be the full version of myself. And so I'm very grateful for him and everything that he's taught me, from how to melt down the irons that came from tires to make our fishing weights when we go out to fishing. He used to always say, I'd hook a fish, and I'd say, Papa, I got a fish. And he'd tell me, you ain't got a fish. You don't have it until it's in the boat. It's lessons that I take with me every day. So I would put him at the top of the list, most influential person in my life, still to this day. This individual is, he's not going to like that I'm going to say this. I'm sure he's going to watch this, but his name is Anthony Wright. He's the CEO of Pioneer Human Services. And he is, he's the closest thing to my grandfather for me. Incredible human being. I can't say enough about him as a man. I talk to him every day. He pours wisdom into me, and he really encourages me, and strengthens me when those times where I'm weak. This entrepreneurship business is hard at times, and it's very lonely at times.
Yes, it is.
And so having the right people in your corner that can speak life into you in those moments, he's been that, and he's still guiding me and encouraging me, and it's just, I can't say enough about him as a man. He's an incredible human being. And then sorry, there's four people.
Okay.
Sorry, I know we're going to go over time, but I'm going to name these four people. The third person, her name is Kelly Creedon. I met her when I was working with the Seahawks. She was also working with the Seahawks. She and I, our souls are connected, long before we were here in this time era. She has taught me an incredible amount about finding who I really am and unpacking the layers, and how she describes it's like an onion, right? Like you pull back layers, there's more layers. And so continuing to pull back those layers, and the techniques and the tactics to do that, but then also giving your space yourself the space and time to actually reflect on each layer and being appreciative of each layer, right?
Right.
There's an 18-year-old version of Doug Baldwin who made some blunder decisions, right? That didn't derail my life, obviously, but, made some pretty bad decisions at times. I'm very grateful for that 18-year-old version of myself because, again, I wouldn't be here with you today if it wasn't for that 18-year-old navigating life and trying really hard with the limited resources and knowledge that I had at that time, right? And so pulling back those layers and being really appreciative of those layers, Kelly taught me that.
Okay.
And she's still teaching me in a number of ways. I call her my oracle.
Oh,
I don't know if you've
awesome.
have you ever seen the show The Matrix?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember the scene where Neo is sitting down in a park bench with the oracle?
Yeah.
And the oracle asks him, "Do you want a piece of candy?" And Neo reaches over to grab the candy, but then he stops and he says, "But you already know if I'm going to get a piece of candy." And the oracle says, "Wouldn't be much of an oracle if I didn't," right? And then he asked the question, "But what about free will? If you already know, where's my free will?" And what the oracle said really stuck with me. She said, "You don't understand why you're here. You think you're here to make the decision. You've already made the decision. You're here to understand why you made the decision." I look at life through that lens now. The decisions that I've made, I've already made those decisions. Right? The upbringing, the childhood experiences, all of those things have molded me for who I am today that then influences the decisions that I make. I've already made a lot of these decisions. So what I'm trying to understand is, why did I make those decisions? Kelly Creedon is my oracle, and she helps me navigate those questions every day. She's an amazing human being with a depth and breadth of wisdom that is just incredible. And then the fourth person is my wife.
Okay.
Right? My wife, she is all of those things. She encompasses all of those things. She's the mentor when I need her to be. She's the soft landing spot when I need her to be. She's the encouraging voice when I need her to be. She's everything that I need her to be. And, I say that kind of with a caveat of that there's a healthy balance for me not to need all of those things from her. But when I do need those things from her, she's that person. Again, I wouldn't be here with you if it wasn't for that woman and the way that she has loved me and has shown love to me and has given me an abundance of grace in the 10 years that we have been together. She's an amazing, incredible human being. So, again, I've been surrounded by amazing people, individuals all my life. I've been blessed with people who've poured into me and have spoken life into me and that genuinely love me. And there are so many others,
Sure.
I named a few from my childhood experience at the community center.
Right.
But yeah, and I know there are more people coming who are going to influence my life and make it a more enjoyable experience. And I'm very grateful for that, and I can't wait for that opportunity as well.
Yeah, because you're open to it. Okay, our last question. Being a game changer at its core means that you're disrupting something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people out there who are swimming upstream or finding resistance about their idea or whatever they're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give those individuals who are trying to change the game but getting the pushback or it's just difficult, it's challenging?
Yeah. Love your people. As simply put as that.
Right.
Tomorrow's not promised, right? So we can make all these plans and have this vision for what the future can look like, but the truth of the matter is that the future is not promised. And so loving your people is really just being in the moment and being present and being appreciative of the experience that you have right now in this moment, right?
Sure.
I'm very grateful for this conversation. It's affirmed a lot of things for me because I'm able to speak out loud things that I've been wrestling with and that I know to be true. And so saying them out loud affirms that they're true.
Right.
But then you pose questions that then make me think about things differently, right? I'm very grateful for that. And so in this moment, I just want to cherish this moment and appreciate it because I'm a better person now than I was 5 minutes ago.
Right.
And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
And so anybody who's doing anything in the world, cherish the moments. And how I think you do that well is by loving the people that you're around.
Sure.
and valuing and appreciating the moments that you do have, because again, the moments are fleeting and tomorrow's not promised.
That is a great way to wrap this up. Doug, thank you. Thank you for making time to be here, for sharing your leadership journey and the wisdom that you've gained along the way. I just really appreciate you being on We the Game Changers.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of We the Game Changers, a production of the Seattle Sports Commission with support from Metamora Productions. Please subscribe to We the Game Changers on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Beth Knox, and as we wrap up our first season, I am so grateful for your engagement and for tuning in to all of the great leaders that we have brought to you at We the Game Changers. We'll be back for season 2 with a new lineup of disruptors and conversations to get you inspired to make change in your own spaces.